There are roughly 3,000 billionaires on Earth right now. 3,000 people who woke up this morning with more money than most countries will generate in a decade. Different faces, different countries, different stories they tell about how hard they worked, how much they sacrificed, how nothing was ever guaranteed. But here's what nobody actually says out loud. Strip away the yachts, the Senate hearings, the TED Talks about disrupting industries they happen to destroy on the way up. And there are really only 6 types. 6 ways a human being ends up with more money than entire nations. And the last one, number 6, is the one that makes everyone uncomfortable. Because it's the one hiding in plain sight. The one nobody wants to put a name on. Stay until the end. The 6th type is the one nobody wants to admit exists. But it might be the most common one of all. This is every billionaire. Explained. Type 1. The inheritor. He didn't build anything, didn't risk anything, didn't stay up until 3 in the morning with an idea that kept him from sleeping, didn't pitch to investors who told him no, didn't eat badly and live out of a suitcase wondering if this was all a terrible mistake. He just had the right last name at the right time. And that, as it turns out, is worth $1 billion. His name was on a trust fund before he could walk. His future was decided before he had opinions about anything. The wealth existed before he did. He simply showed up to collect it. Now, people love to say inherited wealth is a curse, that growing up with everything handed to you destroys your drive, makes you soft, disconnected, hollow, and maybe there's probably some truth buried in there somewhere. But here's the part that actually surprises people. Most inheritors don't blow it, and that shocks everyone because it really shouldn't work. A 25-year-old who has never truly had to earn anything, suddenly responsible for $1 billion empire. That's a disaster waiting to happen. Except it usually isn't, because keeping $1 billion is a completely different skill set from making one. And hiring the right people to protect your money turns out to be genuinely not that hard when you already have the money to hire them. Consider this. In 2023, for the first time ever, more new billionaire wealth came from inheritance than from entrepreneurship. 53 heirs collected a combined $150 billion in a single year. That's more than the GDP of Hungary, transferred quietly, without a single pitch deck or sleepless night. The inheritor doesn't make history, doesn't get a documentary, nobody builds a statue, but he also doesn't lose the family fortune. And in a world where empires collapse in a single bad decade, sometimes that's the whole game. He started life on third base and convinced himself he hit a triple, but don't hate him too much because the next type started at 0. And what he did with that 0 is genuinely insane. Drop a comment. Do you think inherited wealth should be taxed at 100%? Type 2. The obsessed founder. He quit a perfectly good job, drove across the country with his wife while typing a business plan in the passenger seat. No destination. Just an idea and a terrifying amount of certainty. Most people called it reckless. He called it the only option. This one didn't sleep. Not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't. Because sleeping felt like losing ground to someone, somewhere, who was still awake building the exact same thing. While other people were living their 20s, dating, traveling, doing anything resembling a normal human life, this person was locked in a room, convinced they had spotted something nobody else could see yet. A gap, a broken system, an idea so painfully obvious it was embarrassing that nobody had done it already. They got rejected by investors who said the market was too small, by partners who left when the money ran out, by everyone around them who quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, suggested it was time to get a real job. They kept going anyway, not out of arrogance, not out of blind optimism, but because stopping felt physically impossible. Like the idea had taken over, and there was simply no path back to normal. But here's the part nobody mentions when they tell this story. For everyone who makes it, there are 10,000 who burned their savings, destroyed their health, lost a relationship, and built something nobody wanted. 10,000 people who followed the exact same playbook, the same conviction, the same sacrifice, the same refusal to quit, and ended up with nothing. The obsessed founder either becomes a legend or a cautionary tale. And from the inside, it is genuinely impossible to tell which one you are until it's already over. You want to be this type. Tell me in the comments. But first, wait until you hear Type 3. Type 3. The Cold Investor, October 2008. Markets are collapsing. Banks are failing. Grown adults are crying on trading floors. The financial world is ending, or at least it feels that way. And everyone with money is desperately trying to figure out where to hide it. One man is quietly buying. He never built a product, never had a vision for changing the world, never wore a black turtleneck on stage, never gave a speech about disruption or purpose or the future he was trying to create. He just bought things when they were cheap and sold them when they were expensive. And he was better at it than almost anyone else alive. Patient, disciplined, emotionless in a way that borders on supernatural. While everyone else was screaming during a crash, he was quietly taking notes. While everyone was celebrating at the top, he was even more quietly walking toward the exit. No drama, no rebrand, no mission statement about making the world a better place. Just math, applied consistently for decades. Now, here's the part that never makes it into the finance books. The cold investor's biggest advantage isn't intelligence. It isn't access. It isn't some secret formula he discovered reading balance sheets at 5 in the morning. It's the ability to do absolutely nothing when everyone around him is losing their mind. That's it. That's the whole secret. The average investor checks their portfolio 17 times a day during a market crash. The cold investor checks his once, then closes the laptop and goes for a walk. And somehow, almost nobody can actually do it when it really counts. If you think discipline beats intelligence every single time. Type 4. The disruptor. Two guys in San Francisco can't afford their rent, so they put an air mattress on the floor of their apartment, charge strangers $80 a night to sleep on it, and accidentally invent a company that would eventually be worth more than the world's largest hotel chains combined. They didn't ask for permission. Nobody gave them a license. No hotel association blessed the idea. No city planner signed off on it. They just did it. And by the time anyone thought to stop them, it was already too big to stop. The disruptor has a specific skill that cannot be taught in any business school. He can look at a massive, entrenched, decades-old industry and see it not as intimidating, but as a target. Taxis, hotels, media, banking, retail. One by one, the disruptors showed up, looked at how things had always been done, and said, "This is broken," and then replaced entire sectors with something faster, cheaper, and infinitely more scalable. The people whose livelihoods disappeared called them villains. The investors who backed them called them visionaries. The truth, as always, lives somewhere in the middle. But here's the uncomfortable part nobody says in the case studies. Disruption almost always hurts real people, real jobs, real families, real communities that built their entire identity around an industry that no longer exists. The disruptor knows this and does it anyway. Because in 10 years, the same people whose jobs disappeared will be using his product every single day, without even thinking about what came before it. That's not cynicism. That's just what disruption actually looks like from the inside. Tell me in the comments, is the disruptor a hero, or just a very successful destroyer? Type 5. The lucky one. It's 1999. A young engineer joins a small startup in Silicon Valley as employee number 12. He almost didn't take the job. The salary was lower than his other offer, and the company seemed like a long shot. The company was Google. Nobody wants to talk about this one. Not the podcasters, not the business schools, not the motivational speakers who built entire careers on the idea that success is purely a function of discipline and mindset and getting up at 4 in the morning. Because acknowledging this type means acknowledging something deeply uncomfortable about the nature of success. He was in the right room at the right time. He invested in the right company 6 months before anyone else realized it was the right company. He stumbled into the right market during the right decade, not because of genius, not because of vision, not because of some framework he developed after years of careful study, because of timing. And timing, as it turns out, is worth billions. But here's where it gets genuinely interesting. The lucky one almost never describes himself as lucky. By the time the money arrives, the story has already been quietly rewritten. The right place, right time moment becomes a bold contrarian bet. The stumble becomes a strategic pivot. The accident becomes evidence of superior pattern recognition that others simply couldn't see. He'll spend the rest of his life writing books about it, giving advice, building a personal brand around lessons from a journey that was, if we're being completely honest, mostly just fortunate. And honestly, good for him. Because knowing how to tell your story might actually be the most valuable skill of all. Does luck deserve a $1 billion reward? Comment your honest answer. Type 6. The necessary villain. A man sits in a Senate hearing room, facing dozens of senators who printed their questions on paper and occasionally need their staffers to explain what a website is. He answers every question with the patience of someone who knows with complete certainty that nothing decided in this room will actually stop him. He's right. Everyone hates this one. He's been hauled in front of Congress, dragged across social media, called a monopolist, a manipulator, a threat to democracy, a threat to privacy, a threat to the basic fabric of how human beings are supposed to relate to each other. And yet, everyone still uses his product, every single day. Because somewhere between the headlines and the outrage and the congressional hearings and the documentaries, the thing he built became infrastructure. You can hate the man and still need the platform. You can call him dangerous and still open the app first thing in the morning before you've even processed what day it is. That's not hypocrisy. That's just how indispensable works. And here's the part that makes this the most dangerous type of all. The necessary villain didn't set out to be hated. He set out to build something useful. And he was so good at it, so relentlessly, obsessively efficient at making it useful to so many people that refusing to use it became its own kind of inconvenience. Which is, if you sit with it for a second, the most terrifying kind of success there is. You can admire the scale. You can hate the implications. You can do both at the exact same time. But you probably can't delete the app. And he knows that. Which one of these 6 types do you think is the most dangerous to society right now? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. The truth nobody puts in the Forbes profile. 6 types. That's it. 3,000 billionaires. And when you really strip it all the way back, past the PR and the mythology and the origin stories they've been telling for so long, they've started to believe them. They all fit into one of these 6. The one who got lucky with a last name. The one who refused to stop. The one who just followed the math. The one who blew up an industry and called it progress. The one who was in the right room. And the one who made himself impossible to ignore and even harder to quit. Now here's the question I want you to actually sit with for a second. Not scroll past. Actually sit with. Which one are you closest to becoming? And maybe more importantly, which one are you not willing to be? Because sometimes knowing what you won't do tells you more about your path than any morning routine or productivity framework ever will. These 6 types influence our entire way of life through tools that are now part of your daily routine. Could you stop using any of them as a form of protest? Because data is worth more than oil right now. And that is exactly why these tools shape our lives. They know more about you than you know about yourself. And with that, we are steered, quietly, every single day. The inheritor didn't choose to be born into power. The obsessed founder genuinely believed he was building something better. The cold investor was just following the numbers. The disruptor was solving a real problem. The lucky one stumbled into something he didn't fully understand. And the necessary villain built something so useful that the line between tool and trap became impossible to find. None of them sat in a room and said, I want to control how 3 billion people think. And yet, here we are. The most dangerous empires in history were never built with weapons. They were built with habits, with convenience, with things so deeply embedded in your daily life that removing them feels less like a political act and more like losing a limb. You wake up and check the feed. You search before you think. You share before you process. You consume before you question. And somewhere in a server farm the size of a small city, an algorithm built by one of these 6 types is learning exactly who you are, what you fear, what you want, what you'll click on at 2 in the morning when your guard is down. They're not steering you with force. They're steering you with relevance. And relevance, as it turns out, is the most powerful force ever invented. So the next time you open an app, search for something, stream a show, or tap to pay for your coffee, Just remember, somewhere at the top of one of these 6 empires, someone is getting slightly richer. Not because they're evil, because you found it useful. And that is the most honest thing anyone has said about billionaires in a very long time. Asterisk, next video. I'm breaking down every billionaire who lost it all. The ones who had billions and watched it disappear in real time. The falls are always more interesting than the rises. Subscribe. It drops this week. See you in the next one. Asterisk.